following podcast is brought to you by your friends at myactsofsedition.com. We hope you enjoy it. So it was about 2 years ago when I began this journey. I was at watching a commission meeting, and it was the beginning of March, I think March 17th, 2009. Bill Gantz and Joe Miller had won the election, and they were sitting in for their first meeting, and I guess everybody assumed it was going to be just a big hug fest. I don't think that was the case. What happened was the Portier clan was hitting the city up for another $30,000. What was called a community outreach program. However, when I asked around, nobody had any idea what an outreach program was. And just basically mean it was a kitty that they set aside for Sylvia Portier to use as she wanted. You'll recall that she gave $30,000 to her buddy, May Frances Fagan, and how that turned out, right? Meg bought a new car. So they were coming for another $30,000. They got 30 back in August, making it a total of 60 grand for, ostensibly for water bills. Gantz asked the question, is this 30,000 coming from the Chodo? And you know this story. And that time I didn't really know what the Chodo was, so I was wondering Chudda. And in order to make everybody think that the WDBA was on the up and up, Portier's handed out a one-page Word document, and in that Word document was listed the liabilities. One of those liabilities was Lionel Ferguson. Another one was Honoris Portier. Ferguson was listed as owing $74,000. Didn't think much of it. I was kind of zoned in on the Chodo. So hold that in thought for a moment. Go forward with all my investigation of Sylvia Portier and focus in on another story you know, which was the perchloroethylene, the crap that the Portiers were pouring into the groundwater. This is really nasty stuff. It causes women's menstrual cycles to be interrupted, and if you're pregnant, you can abort your child. It's really nasty stuff for women. It's some of the most dangerous chemicals on the face of the earth, and the Portiers were dumping it out back, basically. I cared because my chiropractor was right next door, Dr. Bartel, and I thought, hell, Bartel needs to know what the hell's going on if he lives next to Love Canal, right? So I write to the state of Florida DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, and they tell me, hey, not a problem, dude. Here's a couple hundred pages worth of highly technical literature. I take the time out of the day and I go through this bit by bit, and I come in and find this thing about Lionel Ferguson. It was in Sylvia Portier's financial affidavit. She indicated she owed her brother about roughly $70,000 ish, and his name was Lionel Ferguson. And when I read that, I was thinking, why do I know this name, Lionel Ferguson? Where do I know this name? And then I put the two things together, and I said, oh, lo and behold, there's Lionel Ferguson. I always thought that was kind of weird that your rich uncle would loan $70,000 at a clip, right? And I didn't think much of it for a while. I did my complaints and all that other good stuff, right? I was going through some paperwork just recently because since the beginning, I could never quite figure this whole thing out. There was like a piece missing, you know, and I couldn't figure out what the hell that piece was. It was like a piece of the puzzle. People that know me, I've heard this time and again. I would lament that I just couldn't put it all together. It was as if I was missing something, right? When I did my undergraduate studies in applied mathematics, there was a professor by the name of Mo. He taught me when you have a complex problem, the way to solve it is to read it over 5 times and then back up and think about it. And I've come to learn over the years that's known as Gestalt, as the Germans say, which is basically the suchness of it all. And that talks about the wholeness, kind of a heuristic way of solving problems, right? And that worked for me throughout my career. But I couldn't figure out what the pieces were in this. They had to be hooked up, right? But I couldn't figure out how they were hooked up. So I went through some stuff that I just had, and lo and behold, I came across something from the Kessler audit. It's been sitting in my files for a while. I just must have skipped over it for whatever the reason. And it was the interview, Kessler's interview of Sylvia Portier. And in this interview, she talks about the Lionel Ferguson note. And in this Lionel Ferguson note, it was borrowed $26,000 and turned it into $74,000, making the VIG 40%, which, if you follow the law, that's illegal. But it's not the first time that the Portiers would perhaps charge excessive interest rate. I filed a complaint with the Broward State Attorneys saying that Dan Portier put some notes on the book to do that. Just that. Now, here's the problem that really bugged me. Lionel Ferguson supposedly was owed $74,000. And I looked at all the books for the WDBA. I don't know how many of you are listening to me can raise your hand and say, yep, you're right, I looked at all the books. You'll bitch about me, but did you ever do the legwork? I don't think so. Here's the deal. Dan Portier was owed money by the WDBA. He supposedly made loans, and he probably did. I'm okay with that, and he was getting paid back. A little problem with the usury law, but other than that. So Dan Portier, like clockwork, was paid back. Now, the WDBA wasn't rich, but they had money. But they didn't pay Lionel Ferguson back a penny. At least none of the books I saw. Maybe they have a different set of books. That'd be a whole nother question right there, right? But they didn't pay Ferguson back a penny, nor did they pay back Norris Portier. That always bugged me. I mean, anything, right? Here you go, buddy. $50 and a pair of coupons to Arby's and some special sauce, right? But there was nothing. Why would you owe a guy $70-something thousand and not pay him back? Very problematic to me. It just didn't make sense. It did not make sense. And going through more of the Kessler paperwork, I was reading about how these notes were paid off in 2006. It was property tax, back property taxes on the handful, 6 or 7, I forget what it is, but 6, 7, 8 properties that the WDBA owned, and they owned property. They owed property tax. But they paid off in 2006. And then I figured it out. Oh, shit. What happened in 2006? What organization here in town had a lot of money, cash flowing around, cash that ultimately goes unaccounted for, tangentially attached to the Portiers? How about the mango? How about this? In 2006, the Mango Festival repaid some of the WDBA notes. That $74,000 note that is on the books for whatever the reason is actually Sylvia Portier's note. And maybe they were thinking that they could get money from the federal government, the state government, the handouts through the community outreach programs to repay Sylvia Portier. So they were in theory double dipping. Lionel Ferguson didn't get paid. I looked at Lionel Ferguson's public records of what he owns in life. He drives according to my records, he drives a 98 Nissan, I think. He lives in a modest house. I guess the guy could be pinching pennies, but my read says the guy doesn't have $150,000 worth of stuff to loan out. So did he really loan out the $150,000? Huh. The other thing that bothers me is, why isn't the state attorney doing anything about this? They know about it. I don't get it. Why aren't they doing anything about it? Well, here's the deal. For 2 years, I studied this stuff. Literally. I know about the Chodos. I know about the WDBA. I know about Sylvia's water bills. I know about Sylvia's property taxes. I'm pretty much a subject matter expert. And there's still things that confuse me. I still learn stuff. I'm still drawing conclusions and inferences. It's not necessarily just a slam dunk kind of deal. So, state attorney, busy, notoriously slow. What happens if they got to come in and they got to start putting all the pieces to the puzzle together? What happens if there's more to this than just what we see? It's really interesting. It would be fascinating as if this all was true. Now, mind you, I'm drawing a lot of inferences here, but it'd be really amazing if all this story started because the Portiers wanted another $30,000. So here's the question, kids. Do you believe this guy was owed that money? There's no record of it on the books. The record that the state at the Broward County Appraiser, the Payment Revenue Office, is weak at best. Would you put it past Sylvia Portier and those folks to do this? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The WDBA is on hard times. They're if I get my facts lined up, they're maybe losing properties to back payments, property taxes, right? It's fascinating. It is very fascinating. What do I believe? I'll leave you with this. My guess, Ferguson didn't make that payment. Somehow Terry Scott plays into this. In 2006, we were loosey-goosey. There was no Chaz Stevens on the court. There was no blogs. There was no engaged citizen. They got away with whatever they got away with. And they thought they had the perfect crime. What do you think? The following podcast has been a presentation of myactsofsedition.com. Copyright 2011.